Howdy everybody in YouTube land. What we have in front of us today is yet another Macintosh Portable. I seem to do a lot of these on this channel. This one came from the same person as the last one, Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. This one I think is the backlit model, unlike the last one we restored on this channel. So, let's take a look at it real quick. It's got some scuffs on the case, nothing too out of the ordinary for something this old. So let's take a look at what we got inside here. Now the zipper is malfunctioning, so don't know why that is. That one's good, but this one is just not. Oh yeah, look at that. That is a problem. Ooh, 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 ooh. That is a bad thing. So that's a problem. That one cannot. That's gonna have to be fixed by like a seamstress or something. Cause yeah, that's crap. Well, yeah, that's gonna be a big problem. So I think what we're gonna have to do to fix this is we're gonna have to, like, when he closes this thing up, he's gonna have to set the zipper at this point. There we go. So when he closes it, zipper one's gonna have to go here, and zipper two is gonna have to go there. Because this thing is, that thing is screwed. Look at that. That is not gonna be fixable. Not easy. I mean, someone who's good at seamstressing stuff, you could, you know. Anyways. Let's see. What do we have? We have a M5126. So this is the backlit model, and the looks like, unfortunately, the feet are shot, which is common on these. Been stored in a rough environment. I don't think any of mine have the feet left on it. Alright, so let's see, what do we have in here? Well, we have the power adapter, which is gonna need the capacitors replaced. Oof! Yikes! They got a bit of a bashco twinkulated off the side there. Alright, let's set this off the side. Yeah, that's dangerous using the handle because it's brittle. Okay, anything on the bottom here we need to look at? Doesn't look like it. Nope. Actually, hang on. I don't recall if mine had this sleeve in it or not. There's something. Oh yeah, there we go. Here's the discs. System startup 6.0.7. We're gonna have to test those and see if they're any good. Because who knows. So I didn't even realize. Yeah, there's more. So all the discs are in the case. That's cool. I can feel more in there. Or maybe not. No, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Alright. Let's take this case and gracefully put it off to the side here. In the seat. Macintosh Basics. Macintosh Portable Update. I don't know what that does. If that's even archived, who knows. MacLink Plus, which I think that's already out there on the web. I think most of these are already out there, but never know. So, worth taking an archive of all of that. But the more important thing is, let's get our prize up there, the actual Macintosh Portable, so we can take a look and see what's going on with that. Other than the crack on the side, it looks pretty good, honestly. Let's see. Hinges are stiff, of course. Screen's in decent shape physically. Keyboard's okay. Obviously, the trackball is going to have the same problem that they all do now, but it's got a lot of key wear, so she's seen some use. It was a well-loved machine in its day. Considering how much it cost new, I can only imagine why that would be the case. Unfortunately, this takes two hands to get off. Okay. Well, still has the original hard drive. So that's good. Has it leaked? Oh boy. Yeah, someone's been tinkering in here. Not surprised. Who knows if that drive's any good anymore, because those Connors have molten rubber. Alright, we don't have a battery, which you're not surprised, because most of them don't work anymore, so you need that or a battery eliminator. We have a RAM card, which has got to come out anyways. That one is, yep, that's definitely the correct RAM. So we'll set you aside. And yeah, everything else. Oh no! Look at this guy. Crap. Yeah, that's what happens. That right there is what happens when you have hinges that are too stiff. So this internal chassis is starting to get brittle. Oh yeah, look at this. Completely busted off. This thing's hosed. That's unfortunate. This one is going to have to be glued down with some epoxy, which means this clutch will never come off again. Oh, okay. Well, alright. I gotta think about how to approach this scenario. It'd be cool if this was copied for 3D printing, but this thing would be really hard to 3D print just how it's designed. Maybe if it were split in half and then this half was done and that half was done and the two are glued together. I don't know. Or it's designed where it overlaps here a little bit, like this way and then that way, so then you could glue it and clamp it on both sides. But anyways, the internal subframe is really rickety, so, and I found an easier way to get these off too. You just work it back and forth and pull it. Do the same thing over here as well. Just work it back and forth and pull it. It will loosen itself. But that is unfortunate. Oh man. It's still connected in the rear. Kinda. Yeah, we're gonna have to like glue that sucker back on, I think. Yep. Because there's a lot of torque here. You gotta have some structural rigidity there, or it's not gonna do you any good. So, all right, let's get the keyboard, palm rest, setup, trim ring, whatever you want to call it, out of there, so we can get to this to see how bad this is. Because here's the thing: to glue this means this still has to be removable, or vice versa. You can't glue them both, because if you do that, you can't get the screen off ever again. So you need at least one side that is removable. Otherwise, it will never come out of there. So, I'm glad this one's not broke. Because if they were broke on both sides, we'd be screwed. I don't know how you'd fix that without making it permanent, that is. So, yeah, buddy. Getting brittle. Fortunately, the top cover clips didn't break when trying to remove it. And most of the time they don't, but sometimes they do. But it's out, and you can really see the damage that happened here. But with the side of the cover completely blown out, this was probably caused externally. Likely shipping damage. But it's just unfortunate that one's broken. Because the problem with this one being screwed is the cable, where the cable sits. It sits on, let me get that out of the way. It sits on this side. So you can't slide the LCD out that way without running into this. So that goes up in here so this thing doesn't spin. It'll keep this thing steady. So yeah, I might have to trim this down a bit. I don't know. But I'll worry about that later. The more important thing is we got to get this board out of here. Tell you what, after I pulled the frame and board apart, that piece there that's broken off, it was laying in the bottom. I found it. So that means I could simply just glue that back on there, since this isn't really load bearing. That way I can put the tab back in there. That way this will still slide in and out and hold in, and then just glue this one. The good news is the motherboard is extremely clean. Yeah, there's signs of capacitor leakage, but it's very minimal. It's one of the cleanest portable boards I've ever seen. So I'm thinking this thing was stored well, and that's kind of why that is. But before I get carried on down the line, because it's getting late in the day, I think what I want to do is get the epoxy mixed up, try to fix this, and let it cure up overnight, because I've got a long day tomorrow for other tasks. I can't work on this thing tomorrow, so I figured I might as well just go ahead and get this out of the way first, get it tacked up and glued in there, let it cure. That way, by the time I get this done, everything will be good to go. Now, unfortunately, the hinges are going to have to be glued in with it. But I got that tab glued back in here already, so that will allow me to secure it on this end. We just have to work around this obstacle when putting the screen back on there. But it is what it is, unfortunately. But we can't use it without this being glued. You can open the screen, but you can't close it because there's no support. So this has to be fixed. So I got it glued in there as best as I can, and then I did a tack melt on each side so it would stay in place. And I didn't glue it on the inside because I'm gonna hold out hope that I can slide it back in there when I'm done. But anyways, I'm just waiting for it to set now. So as I'm doing it, I'm rotating it like this. That way it doesn't all droop down the one end too far or the other. I just want it to set so I can get some strength. Alright, while that epoxy is curing, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this logic board. And like I mentioned earlier, there's not much damage, if any whatsoever, on this board at all. So, yeah, I think we're good, unlike a lot of these portable boards I see. So, just going to pull all those caps off real quick, grab all of these, put them on here, and skip ahead on this one. I did find an open via. It is right here. I don't know if I can see it because I left my flashlight in Boiling Springs, so I am not driving 3 hours for a $10 flashlight. Anyway, so right there next to C10, you see that black via right there? You can kind of see it black in the middle. There's a glue spot right there in the middle. That's not the via, it's the one next to it, just above the pad. Now that is going to the very first pin right here on the corner. So that's a data or address line 1 going to the video chip. So I'm going to have to take a drill. Let's see if I can zoom in a little more. Yeah, I'm going to have to take me a little drill bit and patch that, which is not a big deal, just a pain. That's the one I found so far. There's the other one up here, which is partially open, but is still partially connected. And that is the one that runs to the chip select signal to the ASC. So that's also important, but I got to get that one drilled out and patched. And there we go. Drilled out the via, and I ran a wire through there and soldered it on that side. And it's also soldered on that side. So that should no longer be a problem now. I'm going to check for any remainders, and then we're going to get the capacitors put in here. I also had to remove this inductor so I could see everything up underneath there, which had to be cleaned out. All the caps are installed everywhere they need to go. So here we go. Let me turn this on, get the power supply dialed down. The big thing for me right now is I need to make sure, considering what I know, many times when it comes to these portables, is I need to make sure that the voltage regulator is running at the correct voltage, because these portables are notorious for not regulating. So alright, here we go. Okay, 5.2 volts. Yep, it's regulating. Perfect. Let's reset the PMGR and see if it runs. It does. No boot loop, and we get a good chime. Perfect. Awesome. So we can start reassembling this guy. Actually, no. I got to get in the display because I think there's a couple more caps in the inverter. I think. Don't quote me on that. So I got to get the upper display assembly apart, which is up here. So let me get that apart. Two things we have to do to get this thing apart. We've got to remove both screws at the top, but also where the handle goes down, there's a little pinhole here, and there's another one on the other side. Inside there's little finger clips. You got to push them out of the way so this thing will slide out and remove itself. But we can't do that until we get this part off first. It's kind of a hassle, but yeah, we get that off, we get the two screws out, and then we undo the clips, and the whole thing should just slide down and off, and this will fall off with it. And that is all it takes to get that front cover off. It just slides down once you have the two screws out, this thing removed, and you got to be careful around this cable because you will tear it. So we get that removed, and then we get these two clips undone, which they're actually on the display bezel themselves, and then the whole thing slides down. So we'll grab you, move you out of the way. And that exposes the part that we actually need to get to right here, which is the inverter. There's two capacitors on there we got to take care of now. These probably don't leak. But we're just going to go ahead and take care of it anyways. This is a 16 volt, 10, and 10. They're both 10s at 16, and I have these low profile caps, fairly common in a lot of Sony gear and stuff like that, so I have those on hand. We'll just go ahead and change those out. I do need to get this screen off and see if there's actually any on this display, because I don't know about the backlit ones, so I need to get under there and take a look. And we might as well clean it while we have all this stuff out of here anyways, because this thing's kind of nasty. Well, the good news is the caps in here are all solid caps, so technically this thing can stay, although I want to clean this bezel thoroughly, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it. But because the anticipation is killing me, I want to go ahead and just grab the logic board real quick with this display out of its case and see if it'll run with the display connected to make sure this display is any good, because who the heck knows. I am somewhat concerned because I can see degradation and tunnel vision in here. So you see that? You can kind of see it. Yeah, it's concerning, but we'll see. Well, good news and bad news. Good news is the screen works, everything comes on. The bad news is it has a line in it, which is honestly to be expected anymore, because almost every single one of these displays now, they're dead or dying, and it's the nature of these very early active matrix displays. So It's still usable. That's a good thing, I suppose. You can still use it. And actually, that sits like between the menu bar and the rest of the system, so you probably won't even notice it anyways. I don't know. We shall see. New capacitors are installed. These are nice little Matsushita capacitors too, or otherwise known as Panasonic. So, that's done. The only thing left now is I got the bezels drying off. But I think while I'm waiting for those to dry, I am going to pop apart this guy and start working on you. Because as we know from our previous interactions, these are a problem and we need to take care of it. So let's get this guy apart. Alright, so I got this guy cracked apart. This is the M5126 SMP10BB. As far as I know, there's two different versions of these. There's this version, which came with the backlit, and then the older one, which is a Sony one. And the Sony ones are the worst ones. Now, these aren't nearly as bad, but it needs attention. So what we have is a pair of 1000 microfarad to 16 volt low ESR. We have a low ESR 100 at 25. Then we have a traditional 10 microfarad at 50 volt right there. And then we have another one on this little driver card, but I don't know. Okay, this is a 4.7 at 50. So we got a 4.7 at 50, 10 at 50, two 1000s at 16, and a 100 at 25. And that will do it for this particular power supply. So, fairly straightforward. Not too bad. Now, these KME series aren't like the other one, but they're definitely getting there. See that brown crusty around that pin? Yeah, she's on her way to death. So, yep, had to go. With the exception of the main filter, which is a 56 microfarad at 400 volt, all of the rest of them have been changed. So, alright, so we're going to glue this guy back together and move on. Well, we are good. So, perfect. Now we're going to move on. Waiting for the LCD assembly to dry, and we can start putting all of that back together. There we have it. The display has been completely reassembled. The LCD itself is clean, so... Alright, it's time to reassemble the base unit, and then do a test first. Make sure everything turns on, and then we will move on. So the motherboard retainer thingy is back in the bottom cover. However, checking this glue, it really dried hard. And luckily I was able to clean it out enough to where I can still slide this in and out. I didn't have to make it permanent. Oh, thank God for that one. Anyways, the other thing we need to figure out is... we've got to get these apart and get them relubricated. That's the next thing. We got to get those relubricated before we can start reassembling this thing. Oh yeah, this sucker's dry as a bone. Both of them are. I can stick my fingers in there and not feel any grease. See how's this one look. Yeah, they're terrible. So yeah, we're going to have to get in there and really grease those guys up. Alright, so the display's installed. I got the hinges relubricated. And I glued that piece back in, so this is held in there now. And I do not have this one yet, but I am working on it. So I'm missing that one because that one was over here. But it's all epoxied in place now. It actually looks really good. So I think we're going to be alright here. So anyways, it's energized. Let's check this, see if it comes on. Yep, we got a chime and we got a backlight. I love it. Backlight is working. Perfect. Alright. Next thing up is we need to start looking and servicing the drives. So we're going to go ahead and do that next. So we'll shut you down and then service the drives. So looking at the two drives, this one here, someone's had this apart. Maybe this drive's no good, I don't know. I'm going to find out because these Connors have rubber inside there that fail. So we need to check that. But more importantly, we're looking at this floppy drive, and this thing has had some unfortunate incidences. Look at that. Needs a manglectomy. So we're going to have to take this guy apart and service this drive. I mean, you got to do that anyways, but we got to check everything to make sure someone didn't, you know, shove a screwdriver in here and completely EOL the thing. But the other thing we have to pay attention to on some of these drives are these solder joints, especially on these connectors. I just, by principle, resolder those now because they're starting to become a problem. So just keep that in mind. Same thing with these switches, especially with the, like I can see cracking going on here. So you got to resolder the switches and resolder all of these connectors. So we have that to do, and then we got to do the standard service like the heads and the eject motor and, you know, all that fun stuff. So let's get this guy apart first. This is less critical because it can be replaced with a blue SCSI, but this, on the other hand, yeah. Alright, the floppy drive is completely serviced. This motor was seized solid, like totally. I had to remove this motor, hook it on the power supply and let it run. And once I freed it up and used oil, work it in the bearing while that motor was running, and then reassembled it. One of the ears broke off on me by accident. But that's just kind of how brittle plastic is. So I just glued it down on that corner a little bit. So it ain't going anywhere. While I had it apart, cleaned the reed switch with deoxit because that seems to be a problem on some of these. So that's taken care of. Hopefully that solves our problems with the floppy drive. Next up is this hard drive. I might crack this thing apart and see what kind of situation we're dealing with on a rubber standpoint. Well, I took the lid off, and unfortunately, the magnet is deteriorating. You see the little flap falling down right there? And that's what happens to these Connors. There's something up with those drives and the magnets deteriorate. So that is not repairable. And also this rubber, instead of melting, it's rock hard. So I'm just going to put this drive back together and it can be updated to a blue SCSI. Alright, well, we're giving up on that for now. It may or may not still work. If it does, it won't be for long. Anyways, moving right along, the next up, we've got this trackball. So, remember, when it comes to these portables, we have to replace these disintegrating petroleum rubber rollers. And we used to use this 0.8 millimeter diameter tubing. And that's what we go with. So while I have this apart, I think I'm going to clean this nasty thing up too. And then we'll just change these rollers out. It doesn't appear to be that these metal rollers are definitely not seized, unlike the last one. So that's good. So we'll get that replaced. Trackball's nice and clean with replaced rollers. So I think it's time to start reassembling this thing. My 3D printed clips just finished. I already got that one in there. I'll leave the spare just in case it's necessary. So there we go. That should solve our problem, as long as that joint doesn't break on me. Anyways, time to get the hard drive back in here, keyboard, mouse, and test this thing. Alright, we're just about there. Just gotta plug that cable in. And plug you. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. No, that's right. Kind of a... It's a little bit off kilter. Yeah, that's Strange, I don't remember it being that far off kilter. Oh, you know what? I see the problem right now. Yes, I do. Crap. See this? Compared to that. That means this keyboard was damaged in shipping. Judging by how broken that is, that was on the side, I'm not surprised. Alright, let me get this keyboard back out. Oh man, it's been like that for a while, because it won't. Oh man, it's yeah, look how bent that is. Alright, well. Oh yeah, look at the solder joints too. Well, step one, we're going to have to redo the solder joints, minimum. And then hope like hell I can recover this, because that's terrible. Oh well. It is what it is. Alright, well, not much I can do about that except hope it works, because otherwise I do not have another keyboard. So, not to mention these keyboards are not common. There we go. Make sure our trackball works. The hard drive does not sound good. And I think that hard drive is dead. Oh yeah, she's getting loud. Oh yeah. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, judging by how that magnet looked. Yeah, she's toast. Well then. Alright, well, I'm going to let this go for a bit, and then I'm going to probably have to grab a boot disk, because that drive is dunzo. I got the hard drive to temporarily coax back alive. So the magnet, like I said, is delaminating. Well, it's running into the actuator, so I had to peel it off because it wouldn't allow the actuator to go all the way to the edge. Now that it does, it's working, but it's temporary. It's not going to last. So I think what I'm going to do here is... What in the world is that? Anyways, I'm going to shut this thing down. Be quick about this. Yeah, it's not going to last like that. You can't run a hard drive without their lid. I mean, these old ones you can, but not for long. Anyways, so I need to get a blank blue SCSI image set up so I can back that up. Anyways, yeah, the magnet was delaminating, and it was preventing the actuator from moving all the way over. But I got it now. Well, the floppy drive's working. So I put a floppy disk in there along with the blue SCSI because I don't have a bootable image on that thing. Because I'm going to use the blue SCSI to image the original hard drive before it dies, because it's going to die. But it's a race against time waiting for the slowest thing in the world to image the drive. Proprietary portable interface. It's not like I can go plug the drive into a blue SCSI initiator mode. So we got to do this the old-fashioned way. Alright, here we go. Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. Backlit portable hard drive. Here we go. Hopefully it lasts. We're gonna see. Seems to be running fine on this original hard drive. Now, I got it backed up, so I'm not worried about it. But I think it's a bunch of personal documents and finance data and stuff like that anyway. I don't know if the owner wants any of that back or not. So I'm asking Ron to find out. Anyways, got lucky because there is a line out on the LCD, but it's only out in the menu bar. So it's inconspicuous. You can't tell, which is awesome. Keyboard works amazingly well too. So even though the circuit board's a little bit warped there, it's not enough to cause a problem. And also I was able to get this mouse unstuck. So I noticed this ring there's a tooth on one end. So I'm wondering if that's because it needs to be in a special spot. Yeah, it seems to be working now. So I'm going to leave that alone. Anyway, so looks like those are all the last recently open documents. But yeah, there's a lot of personal data on here. I'm not going to go through it. But the important thing is the machine is working fine. It's working off the original AC adapter. Of course, it's got my battery in it because it didn't have a battery. The hard drive is working for now. But I'm going to leave it up to Ron to put in a blue SCSI if he wants one. So, and then there's the pieces of rubber bumper that kind of fell out of the hard drive. So, yeah, it's done. Floppy drive works. Everything works. So, I think I kind of want to clean up this keyboard a little bit. I don't want to go through the whole deep cleaning like I did the last one, but I am going to do a little bit of surface cleaning and then get this thing put back together. And in the meantime, I want to find out from him if he wants to keep this stuff on it, or for liability reasons, he wants to wipe it. And if that's so, I will wipe that and I'll delete the backups because I don't see any software. The most important thing that I was wanting to do is if there was any software on here that was worth saving, because you just never know, right? So, anyways, there's where we are. All right, well, basically the data, from what I understood, the data was not important. So I went ahead and erased, wiped the drive, did a bad sector test, a thorough test, everything came back clean and formatted it. It's going to get replaced with a blue SCSI anyways, but the drive is functional for now, so I left it alone. The only thing I'd like to do now is I forgot to do the diode mod for the blue SCSI external. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back apart so I can do the diode mod for that. And then I think we can wrap this up. Oh yeah, I want to clean this keyboard a little bit too. It's not as nasty as the last one was, but it does have some surface dirt. So I'm just going to wipe this down real quick. And I think at this point we can get this thing back together. But everything else is working perfectly fine. I have System 7 installed. It has 4 megs of RAM, I think. Yeah, it does. It's got 4 megs of RAM. And then I think that's going to do it because everything else is default. All of the settings are default. And it will restore back to defaults when you take the battery out anyways, because there's no other type of PRAM battery in here but the main battery. So, but anyways, it seems to be working fine. And I'm happy with the fact that the line that's bad in the screen is in the menu bar area, so it's not important. You can't really tell it's there. So that's good. Now, if there's any more that develop, who knows? I'm sure they will with time, but for now, I think we're good. So we're going to go ahead and shut this guy down and get this thing back apart so I can do modifications for the termination power to the blue SCSI external. So what I did this time was I did things a little bit differently. This is an experiment. I don't know how well it's going to work, but it should be okay. So I ran the termination power jumper to this capacitor. And why did I use this capacitor versus having another diode in here like the last one? Well, I'll show you why. Because that capacitor sits on on the other side of an already pre-existing diode, which is connected to there. And then from there, we go to this pin right here, which is in the inner 5-volt VCC plane. So this should, in theory, have power all the time, unless it's in standby, of course. But it's on the other side of this protection diode. So downside is, with this topology, is if someone were to power something in here, feeding back that way, this chip sees that full power. So I don't know, but if you're running a blue SCSI, it'll probably be okay, I would suspect. But then again, the only reason why I did it this way is if I try to add another diode here, I need a 5-volt source, which on the non-backlit portable, there was a convenient spot for that. But on the backlit portable, it does not have one. So, yeah, we've got to figure that out. So, I think this is probably going to be our best option, because I don't want to add another diode here to there, because now you're going through a double diode, which could drop the voltage too low. So, yeah, we'll figure that out. All right, now I feel safer. I mean, I thought I was going to do that, but I'm like, it's probably not such a good idea. But the good news is I found another point where the switched 5 volts resides. So that should solve our problem and powering the blue SCSI. In an ideal world, you'd have this, and then you'd have like a little filter capacitor here to ground, but there's only so much room under the chassis, so I'm happy with that. So we're connecting from, what is a C48? That's the positive side, because this is on the other side of the diode, which doesn't do us any good, so we're going to run another diode this way. That way, I'm happier because there won't be any backfeed. Because if there's backfeed, the diode is supposed to prevent that. Now, there is a diode in circuit, but the backfeed would hit this SCSI chip, so I don't want to fry the SCSI chip. So anyways, I'm happy with this, so we can move on. All right, with any luck, things will just work. Yes, perfect. It's switched like it's supposed to be. Alright, so that means it'll boot from the hard drive, and then I should be able to see my blue SCSI. So I will fast forward through this. Alright. And hopefully it picks up the blue SCSI. Yes, there it is. We're golden. So I still have the backup here, which I need to purge, but okay. We're good. So the next thing I want to do, the very last thing I want to do before I put this thing back together, besides cleaning the keyboard, is I want to see if these diskettes work. Because I don't know what these are on, or what are on these, and I don't know if they've been archived, so yeah, there they are. Macintosh Portable update. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these and just like archive them real quick, I think. Because I like the fact that, let's see, images, System 7, because disk copy won't run in System 7. Okay, there we go. So we'll image these diskettes real quick before they're done. Image, create new image from disk. Macintosh Portable update, select. Right now I'm just gonna go in the blue SCSI and just throw it whatever. Hopefully there's no bad sectors. We'll see though. Oh wow. There wasn't anything on that disk. Okay. So we got that one out of the way now. Let's try the next one. Macintosh Basics. As soon as I get it in, there we go. We're going to save that onto the blue SCSI bootstrap. I don't know why it defaults to that. I don't want to mount it. I just want to copy it. That way we have them. And then what I'll do is I'll take these images and throw them on the hard drive, so he'll have them as well as the discs. I shot all the disk images across to make sure I have that saved because I got the internet working on this thing through the Blue Scuzzy. And I think that is gonna do it. I did leave the original disk images on the hard drive just so they're there. And unfortunately, it looks like when I tried to read the MacLink disk, it just said blank. And then when I went to open it up, it just started failing to read now. So it's done. Not a big deal. All the actual system disks are good. So got all those read out. Got them copied to my FTP server. So I have them. And I got the original hard drive image saved away just in case they need the data. But he said he didn't. So I formatted the drive. Anyways, we're good to go. So I think we're going to wrap this one up. I'm going to clean the keyboard and put it back together. Well, unfortunately, I went to close the screen and nope, that epoxy did not hold. So I need something stronger for that. Hopefully this time it holds. I switched to the tan epoxy and then I doused the crap out of it. So this isn't coming off. It's permanent, which means I got to put the screen in this way, dodging this thing here. Yeah, so the only way to get the screen off is on this side now. If this side breaks, then yeah, I don't even want to think about it. Okay, now let's try to get this thing back together. All right, now that we're back together, shut this thing down. So, oh God, I'm so scared. There we go. Finally. Finally. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Now we can wrap this video up. Because, yikes. Unfortunately, there's still the problem of this having a broken thing, but not a whole lot I can do about that. But the important thing is, it's back together now. Hopefully it stays that way. So, charger's recapped, motherboard's recapped with a patch wire through one of the vias. Hard drive is temporarily repaired. Floppy drive is serviced. Everything appears to be working perfectly fine. So, that's going to be it for this Macintosh Portable. So, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have one. Until next time, guys. Thank you for watching.